Welcome to the Health Coach Nation podcast. My name is Hailey Rowe, and I'm a sales and marketing coach and LinkedIn lead generation service provider. I work with health, life, and mindset coaches and online service-based business owners to help them get more sales, shift their time to the client-generating activities instead of just the busy work, and overcome that social media overwhelm. Let's get into the show. If you're ready to take on your next paying clients, I have good news. My free 4 Basics of Client Attraction and How to Stand Out class is live at haileyrowe.com/client-attraction. In the class, you're going to learn the top 2 traits I recommend for most coaches and entrepreneurs if they really want to turn this into a career. You're going to learn how you can build demand for your services and stop getting crickets on your posts. You're going to learn the sales roadmap I used to improve my sales conversion rate and help my clients do the same. And you're going to learn so much more. So go to haileyrowe.com/client-attraction and get your copy of the class today. Hey everyone, I am live today with a special guest who is a breathwork queen. She is a trauma-informed coach. She has her own certification program, and I'm going to let her introduce herself and share how she got into this whole world. So welcome to the show. Share your name, share how you got into what you do, and we'll go into asking you some questions about how coaches can improve their client results with all the things that you help with.
Thank you so much for having me. So my name is Alyse Bacine. I am a breathwork and trauma expert. So I have an extensive background with trauma and breathwork. So I discovered breathwork when I was 19 years old, so about 23 years ago. And I have been teaching it and sharing it ever since. And then I also have a background as a mental health professional. So I was a school counselor. I have a master's degree in counseling psychology, and I worked as a school counselor for over a decade. So I really combined my experience healing myself through breath work and then becoming pretty skilled in breathwork, teaching it, sharing it, developing my own breathwork methodology, along with my extensive background as a mental health professional working with traumatized children. And I've brought all that together along, with my own just innate gifts around healing trauma to create my methodology, which is called the Metamorphosis Method, which combines my unique style of breath work along with the trauma clearing tools that I created and the energy work processes that I've created to get clients long-lasting results when it comes to business, money, and really any kind of transformation that they're desiring to create.
Amazing. So tell us a little bit about why you think breath work and being trauma-informed can help create more longer lasting results.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I've worked with so many women at this point, and just being someone who has been running a business for the last 4 years, I find that most of what slows people down and gets in the way has nothing to do with strategy or even mindset. It's usually things that are a lot deeper that you can't put your finger on, right? Like something where you might know the things that you need to do, but for some reason you can't make yourself do them and you don't know why. And then you start to feel really bad about yourself and you're like, there's something wrong with me. But usually, actually always, there's something underneath of that, right? There is some sort of what I call core wound or core belief that you're playing out that you're not aware of, whether it's I'm not good enough or there's something wrong with me or the abandonment wound. There's so many, right? But usually it's a much deeper thing that if you can get to the core of it and shift it, then the growth that you desire becomes so much easier. And you can do it more sustainably, because what I see a lot of women doing is if they have the capacity to kind of push through that feeling or that stuckness, they will burn out because they're going to keep pushing themselves until they can't do it anymore. But if you clear that deeper pattern, that deeper issue, then the growth just becomes natural and easy instead of it being something that feels like you're kind of pushing a boulder up a hill.
Yeah. So
on the topic, you mentioned you had some limitations when it came to like money mindset and business and your personal life. So maybe share an example of like, what was one of your money mindset blocks that you had to work through, and what helped you, get through that?
Yeah, so there's so many different things. One of the tools that I've created to help women, I mean, there's a lot of them, but one of the things that I do that a lot of people don't is I help women work through what I call birth story. So that is the circumstances surrounding your birth from conception until 3 months old. And what a lot of people don't realize is this actually creates a blueprint for the way that you see yourself in the world on a very deep unconscious level. So for me, for example, when I was developing in my mother's womb, my parents were both teachers, and they had the biggest teacher strike in history here in Philadelphia when I was developing in my mother's womb, when my mom was pregnant with me. So when I was developing in my mother's womb, there was a lot of fear and scarcity around money. My parents both were not making any money. They had no idea when the strike was going to be over, when they were going to make money again. And they were pretty scared about how they were going to take care of me. So I came into the world within this energy. So this is something that I had to shift and really work at changing, because it created a lens through which I saw the world, which was through the lens of scarcity around money, and thinking that, just assuming that the world is a place where money is something you have to be afraid of. It's something that you're not sure if it's going to be there. And I had to do a lot of work to shift that. Now, where the breath work comes in is, it's not just about intellectually understanding these concepts. It's also about shifting them on the level of the body and the energy field. So the breath work is really hitting out on more of a somatic, energetic, physical level, because a lot of these things that happen, like for example, with the birth story, these are not going to be things that you consciously remember. I mean, this particular story that I'm sharing is something that I was told, but also through the breath work, I actually got to go back, because the breath work gives you access to the subconscious mind. And it also gives you the space to process unprocessed emotions and unprocessed or suppressed wounds. So using the breath work, you're able to access these deeper things that are living in the subconscious, these deeper beliefs and awarenesses, so that you can really shift them. So through the breath work, I was able to clear a lot of this from my energy field and from my body, so that it's not something that I'm just unconsciously playing out. And that is, a really great example of the type of work that I do with women.
Nice. Yeah. And I think that a lot of times in the coaching world, we talk about mindset and cognitive behavioral change and changing your thoughts. But the truth is, sometimes you have to feel something, or, let it process or go through your body first before your mind. Because sometimes we don't even know the thoughts holding us back, and it's all in our body. Are we feeling it? And I think we have to explore that there's more than one way to, move past challenges. Now, there might be some things you can easily work through with what we call like thought work and whatnot. But some of the deeper things, like you're talking about, can be, we don't even, you're saying the unconscious can be playing a part. So tell me more about what is this whole unconscious thing, and how do we know if we have some things going on for us that maybe breath work would be useful?
Yeah. So, most of our thoughts are unconscious, right? I think it's only about 10% of our thoughts are actually conscious thoughts that we're aware of. So most of what is going on is living in the subconscious, and all of the results that you're seeing in your life are a result of your subconscious or unconscious thoughts that you're projecting onto the world. So a lot of what you see in your outer reality is literally something within your subconscious that is being mirrored back to you. So what I would say if someone is like, well, how do I know if I need to, figure out if I have subconscious thoughts that are limiting me? I would say if there is anything that you have been desiring, that you have been wanting to create that hasn't been happening and you're not sure why, there is some kind of unconscious belief or thought you have that is stopping you from creating that thing. Or another example would be in relationships. I always say relationships are the best way to know what your unconscious wounding are, your limiting beliefs are, because they will show up being mirrored back to you with your partner. So if you are one of those people that's like, oh, I just always pick the wrong guy, or I need to, pick better people in relationships, that's actually not how it works. Even if you think you're picking the right person, for example, I guarantee you they will be mirroring something back to you for you to look at and heal within yourself, because that is how we end up in relationships, and that's how we're attracted to people. And it's amazing because every relationship will give you the opportunity to heal and reconcile those things from your past, from your childhood, that need to be healed and reconciled so that you can become the version of you that you're meant to be. So, that's how you'll know. It's if something is not working and you're not sure why, there is something going on in your unconscious that needs to be uncovered and looked at.
Yeah, that's a great point and a great example with the relationship topic. So when you say the trauma informed, because this is a big buzzword in the coaching world nowadays, and you have a certification that helps people be trauma informed, tell us more about what do you mean by that? Why is that important? How can coaches utilize that in their practice?
Yes. So this is incredibly important. And there are a few components to this that I think are very important to understand. One, being trauma informed means that we are aware of the way that trauma can show up for people, and we are sensitive to that or understanding of that. So what I mean by that is like that example I gave in the beginning of, all the things to do, yet something stops you from doing it. If a coach was not trauma informed, they could potentially just think that person is being lazy or not implementing the things that they said. And, they're kind of making them wrong essentially and being like, well, why aren't you doing this? What's wrong with you? You're lazy. But typically, if someone has invested in a coaching container and want to start a business, they do desire to do that. 9 times out of 10, there is something that is getting in the way, whether it is an abandonment wound, and usually that will show up as self-abandonment. So even though you have the best intentions, there will be some kind of unconscious thing that happens that leads you to abandon yourself in certain ways. Or, maybe there's a lot of guilt or shame that starts coming up for you to process, and you're continuously making yourself wrong. So it can feel really burdensome to move forward if you always feel like you're wrong or you always feel like you're not good enough. But a lot of times these things will not be happening in the conscious mind. So it can just feel like you don't know why you can't move faster. You don't know why you can't move forward. And if you have a coach who's not trauma informed, they could actually do more damage by making you wrong or thinking that you are lazy. And then you can just feel bad about yourself instead of actually looking at why this is happening and why it's hard for you to move forward. And I'm not saying every coach has to know how to dig into that trauma, but at least if they were aware that there's something deeper going on, they can suggest, maybe come work with someone like me or work with a therapist or whatever it is so that you can shift that so that you can move forward in your business. And then the other piece around being trauma informed is being willing and dedicated to continue to do your own personal growth work. And this is incredibly important when it comes to being trauma informed, because being aware of your own stories, your own triggers, your own beliefs is incredibly important as a practitioner. And I've seen it over and over again where coaches or practitioners end up projecting onto their client or having trouble separating their own triggers and their own issues from what's going on with their client. And it ends up doing more damage, or there'll be patterns of codependency that are created. And then that relationship is no longer conducive to the results that either party desires, because there are unconscious things going on that people aren't aware of, and it becomes an unhealthy situation. So that's something that I feel very strongly about teaching the women in my certification, especially, is how to separate your own, how to be aware of your own stuff and then separate it from the client relationship so that you can show up in a neutral way and none of that unhealthy stuff starts to happen.
Yeah, that's a great point. And just holding that space for your clients without, as you were saying, like thinking, oh, they're lazy, there's something wrong with them, because you just don't realize there may be a trauma response happening. And one thing that I wanted to ask you as well is if somebody is watching this, because I know a lot of people who would be like, oh, breath work, what? Like, woo woo, So what would you say to somebody who's like, I don't even know where to start with that. It sounds like this airy fairy thing, and they don't really, I think it's still kind of on the rise. What would you tell someone who wants to maybe try it, but they're like, I don't really know. Does it really work? Like that kind of thing.
Yeah, for sure. So I would say it's actually a very practical thing to do for many reasons. One, it is a great way to just connect you with the present moment. And a lot of times we can be so wrapped up in our heads and just going that you don't really tune in and listen to yourself and that inner guidance. So the breath work will connect you immediately to the present moment, your higher self, your innate creativity and inspiration. So if you are a business owner and you want to connect to your creativity and inspiration regularly, breathwork is an amazing tool for that. Also, it's an amazing tool for any kind of symptoms you're experiencing, whether it's anxiety, depression, trouble sleeping, overthinking, any of those things, because it will immediately put you into a relaxed state and relax your nervous system so that you can receive more easily, so that you have a lot easier time attracting clients because you're not always in that state of fight or flight. So it's a really practical and powerful tool for that. And it doesn't have to be something that, takes over your life. Like it can be something that you practice, once a week or twice a week or whatever. And I have a free download that I'll share that people can try and see if they like it. But, it really depends on how far you want to go with it too. It can be something that you literally just do before you go to bed to get a better sleep, all the way to, you can use it in the capacity that I do with clients, where it's a really powerful tool for healing and transformation. So it's really just about the way that you want to use it, because it can be really helpful for such a variety of things.
I love it. Yeah. I mean, and we have to remember at the end of the day, there's our fight or flight mode and our relaxed, is it parasympathetic nervous system. And a lot of times we're spending all the time in fight or flight mode all day long with our world today. And so it's really cool how breathing can change your state. I know Tony Robbins is a big fan of that. When I went to his Unleash the Power Within, he had Wim Hof come out. I don't know if you know who that is. Mm-hmm. And he led this whole breathing exercise and everything. So definitely want to share your freebie with everybody so that they could get started. And now I kind of want to shift into, you are an entrepreneur, you use breath work, you use your coaching. I'm sure you do a lot of personal development work. So tell me a little bit, as somebody who has been coaching clients and also started a coaching certification, what's some really stand out like principles or ways that you juggle like overwhelm and feeling like, it's a big learning curve to learn all these things in entrepreneurship? How do you manage that, or what helps you manage that?
Yeah. So for me, a lot of it has been my knowledge, awareness, and tools around trauma, right? So the breath work is a really big piece of that. But for me, I think one of the reasons I was able to move so quickly in my business is because whenever I would come up against something, like the overwhelm or all of these things you have to learn in growing a business, or questioning if I could do it, I always understood that those things weren't actually roadblocks. It was just stuff that was coming up for me to look at and move through so that I could get to the other side, right? So I think because I was able to understand that, and then also have the tools that I've created, like breath work and the other trauma tools that I have, I was able to move through it. And I also knew when I needed support and what type of support I needed in order to move through it. So I think what happens for a lot of people is they come up against certain things, like, whether it's overwhelm, or a launch doesn't go well, or people aren't responding in the way that they thought that they would, or whatever it is. And then it becomes a whole thing that they think is about, that they shouldn't do this, or this isn't working, and they don't know how to navigate it. Whereas the work that I do gives you a context to be able to navigate what's happening, instead of thinking that it just means that you shouldn't do this, or you're not cut out for this, or there's something wrong with you. It's actually so much more than that. And if you're able to look at it through a trauma lens of like, okay, well, these are these deeper feelings that are coming up that I haven't dealt with, which, maybe there's something wrong with me, or I'm not good enough, or I'm not enough, or the fear of abandonment, or whatever it is, those things will come up for healing and reconciliation as you grow in the business, because the business is a huge personal growth journey. So if you're able to understand that and understand the context of that and how to navigate it, it doesn't make it easier per se when you're in those moments of emotion and those moments of fear, but at least what's going on. So that, okay, I know I'm just going to move through this and get to the other side, and then I'm just going to keep going. So I think that's really important for people to understand.
Yeah, I mean, self-awareness is huge, and it will benefit your business and how you lead so much, because like she was saying before, if you get stuck in your own stuff, it's really hard to be bringing openness to your business without dragging your own little things in there, and potentially causing damage even to your clients if you're, bringing your own trauma responses into your work. So thank you for sharing that. I think that's a really helpful, couple of tidbits for people to know about breath work and being trauma informed. What is most exciting in your world today? Tell us a little more about what you got going on.
Oh, wow. Okay. So, one of the things I love about my world is I do have a 12-month membership, which is it's called a membership, but it's so much more than that. It's actually like a mastermind year-long program, because you have access to my entire body of work, along with, access to every program that I teach live, plus a monthly call with me, a monthly breathwork session. So it's really kind of an all access pass to my world. And that I actually am opening up right now. And if you sign up, you get also a 60-minute private call with me where I do trauma clearing and coaching. So that's just really exciting. And, you can also join any of the programs in there a la carte. Obviously, I run a ton of programs throughout the year, but it's just a really great space to kind of settle into, especially if you're a business owner, because the way I see it is there's three main things that get in the way of the growth of a business owner, which is trauma, familial past life and ancestral trauma, money programming, and then the energetic side of it. And all of my programs address all of those things. So it's a great space to be in. So I have that going on right now. I also have my higher level mastermind, which is called the High Frequency Channel Mastermind, which is just working in closer proximity with me to clear trauma so that you can grow your business, and understanding deeper levels of your purpose and all of that. And then, of course, I have my certification, and that will be starting at the beginning of next year. And that is where I teach you how to do what I do. So if you are like a practitioner, any kind of practitioner that works with clients and you want your clients to get better results, that is definitely the place for you. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. I always have little fun things going on. So if you follow me on Instagram, that's mostly where I share all of my little things that I have happening.
I love it. Amazing. And we're actually going to go on Instagram if you're watching this live right now shortly, and do some rapid fire questions with Alyse and go through a little couple bonus things. So where can everybody find you, connect with you, stay in touch, get your freebie, all the good things?
Yeah. So I can share a link for my freebie because it's not like an easy to remember link. And then you can find me on Instagram at Alyse_breathes. Also, I have a podcast called Reclaiming Consciousness, which you're going to be on as well. And then you can also find me on my website, AlyseBreathes.com.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being here. We'll put that freebie in the show notes at HaileyRowe.com when this comes out as a Health Coach Nation podcast episode. And I appreciate it. I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to this podcast. And if it's really helpful for you, I'd really appreciate if you share it and or leave a written podcast review. This tells the podcast sites that our show is useful and it will be promoted to more people that way. Thanks again.